We now move to our first panel discussion of the day on emerging challenges of data protection, legal framework in the European Union, India, and other jurisdictions. I request our founding director, Dr. G.K. Goswami, sir, who is also the moderator of this session, to please come up on stage for an insightful panel discussion. The panelists for this session include Mr. Shailesh Shirputkar, CEO, Cyber GRC Corporation. Sir, I request you to please come up on stage. Sir specializes in transforming complex cybersecurity and technology risk frameworks into actionable strategies. His mission is yet powerful to help financial institutions, especially in the BFSI sector, close regulatory gaps and elevate their cyber maturity frameworks like NIST, COBIT, MITRE, and ISO 27001. The second panelist is Ms. Meenal Maheshwari Shah, Group General Counsel and Head Public Policy, Angel One, Mumbai. Ma'am, I please request you to please come up on the stage. Ms. Shah is a recognized legal strategist with experience in corporate law and governance. Her work is vital in ensuring Angel One's operations as the forefront of policy discussions and the fintech sector.
The third panelist in the group is Mr. Pawan Sharma, cyber expert from the USA. Sir, I request you to please come up on stage. Mr. Sharma is a mentor for global organizations on digital transformation using AI, robotics, cybersecurity, and quantum technologies. As a cybersecurity expert, Sir helps individuals and business cycles protect their digital assets from evolving threats. Please welcome all the honorable dignitaries gracing this panel discussion with a huge round of applause. I now request Dr. Shruti Das Gupta, Assistant Registrar, Academic Repressives, to present sampling to our esteemed panelists. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And this is the first panel of this international summit. The title of this discussion would be Emerging Challenge of Data Protection, Legal Framework in EU, India and other jurisdictions. In the morning session, I have introduced this topic, stating that privacy right became fundamental right in Indian context, and India became the first country to announce privacy right as fundamental right. But many of us, and particularly we are here from different fields, particularly from police, from law enforcement agency, then from the industry point of view, and the third stakeholder are the academia and more particularly about the student. So we will be, I think, defining this topic more precisely for these three stakeholders. So, as I said in the morning itself, that data is the most important asset everybody has. And I think everybody is looking to the data. And the person who has the largest data probably is the most richest person on this globe. And now every jurisdiction, every individual, and collectively it is a global challenge how to protect data. And although, as I said in the morning, that in 1970, has a state of Germany brought the first law for data protection, but I think in 2018, the GDPR of European Union became the trendsetter. And more particularly, Article 25 has set two important appendices. The one is legality of design and another one is privacy of design. So, my first question is to our esteemed panelist, Ms. Meenal Maheshwari Saha, that what are the real, right and duties of data fiduciary and data principal. And let me tell you, the data principal is the person whose data it is, or it is the owner of the data. In DPDP Act, it is called data principal. And data fiduciary is the one who is the custodian of your data. Like say you are having the SIM card of BSNL, so BSNL become your data fiduciary. So without taking much of time, Ms. Meenal will reflect on these points. Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking the question. So before I go into the rights of a data principal and the duties of a data fiduciary, it is important to understand the applicability of the DPDPA. So DPDPA, which is the proposed law, which is about to come out. It's already come out. It's just the rules that are pending to be notified. Now, this act is applicable to any kind of digital data that is processed in India, but it also has an extraterritorial application, which means that if there is any company in any country, but it is targeting services, selling of its services or goods to an Indian, to a person in India, then also the DPDPA will be applicable to them. This is exactly the same way, this extraterritorial approach is the same way in which GDPR also is applicable. So GDPR and the DPDPA, both, GDPR is a law that is applicable in the European Union for data protection. So both these laws have not only territorial, which is their own country, but they also have extraterritorial jurisdiction. Now coming to the rights, there are three actors in any data protection law. As Sir clearly mentioned, the number one is the data principal, whose private data. So what is personal data? Any data that can identify a particular person. So for example, if you have my Aadhaar, it's a unique data. With that data, you can identify that it is me to whom that Aadhaar belongs. And therefore, that is a personal data. Now, data principal is a person whose data it is that is in question. So for example, if my Aadhaar is in question, then I am the data principal. Now, for example, if you're using a bank to open a bank account, then as Sir clearly said, it is the bank that will be the data fiduciary, because it is that bank that is asking for your personal data. But many times, rather most of the times, you will see that the data fiduciaries, they tie up with a third-party vendor to help them process the data. For example, AWS Cloud. That is where we store the data. Now, that AWS Cloud in this situation will become a data processor. So there are three elements: data principal, data fiduciary, and data processor. Now the rights of a data principal under the current law are such that they should be able to their data can only be used if they have given consent. So that is called the consent framework. Of course, there are exceptions for police authorities, etc., when they are processing under law. Otherwise, consent mechanism is the only mechanism through which you can process data. They should have the right to access the data and change the data whenever they want. That is one of the most important rights that they have under the GDPR. Another right that they have is they can have their data erased if they want to. So if they go to the bank and say, I want you to erase the data, the bank would be under the obligation to erase the data. Of course, the bank can then put the condition that please do not expect the service from me, because this data is necessary for me to provide you service, if in fact that data was necessary. for example, then the right to withdraw their consent, therefore, and also the right to have grievance redressal. For example, they have any grievance, they should be able to directly reach out to the data principal, and the data principal within a few hours has to necessarily respond to the query. Similarly, you have to give a particular reason as to why you want to process. So a data fiduciary is under an obligation to now only collect data if they have a specific reason as to why they need this data. For example, someone needs my date of birth, but that service that they are providing does not require or doesn't need at all my birth or my age. It is age agnostic. Then they cannot collect my data in respect to the age. And therefore, you now need to have a specific reason as to why the data fiduciary wants a particular data. They also need to make sure that they delete the data if the consent is withdrawn. They need to give a proper notice which is very, very clear as to why they are collecting that data and how long they will retain the data. For example, if the data is only needed for 3 years, for instance, then they have to say within 3 years, I will delete your data, and then the backend has to be strong enough to intuitively after 3 years delete the data. So, and then there are two very important things. One is children's data. Children's data is treated differently because you need to have verifiable parental consent. Now, how do we build a verifiable parental consent where we know that it is the parent that has given the consent and not the child? That is something that we need to figure out with the help of technology. And the last important thing is significant data fiduciary. So under the rules, the government can notify who are the people who really have a lot of volume of personal data sitting in their databases, and therefore they will have to have additional duties. For example, all of them will have to appoint a data protection officer. They will have to conduct audits and do DPIs. So these are some of the rights and duties under the Act.
Thank you, Meeraji. You have highlighted very well that how data can be protected and how the data principal or owner must be aware for the protection of data. Because it is paucity of time and we will have having hardly 5-7 minutes left. So I will ask another panelist very important question from Mr. Silas Tirupurkarji, and he is from US, having vast experience of various nuances of data protection. That here we have a large number of police officers and law enforcement agency. So suppose a case is received at police station. Say for example somebody is saying that my data has been stolen either by a hacker or maybe by connivance of the employee. So what kind of steps, because time is less, so if you give just a very 1 to 3 type of notion so that officers may understand how they can make the protocol and all. So please elaborate. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll take an example which people understand. Right? I come from a financial institution, so we protect cash. Right? So you can treat data as a cash. So first and foremost thing for to do this type or solve this type of problem is have an accurate inventory of data. If the organization maintains that data, the second most important part is who has access to the data and what is the location of the data. So if you compare this with the cash is kept in the bank's locker, there are people who have access to it, all the access logs and everything is recorded. Take the similar example applied to data. Of course, this is way more complicated than maintaining a cache and everything. You will need appropriate tools and everything to do this type of work. That's one way. And let's say you receive a complaint for a data breach. Now, the first and foremost step is diagnose the problem, right? How much data has been leaked? Who had access to it? So there will be some sort of initial investigation. That's a diagnostic phase. Then there will be a curative phase, right? Like data is stolen, then informing appropriate parties, either if you have found the data, then all the dark web, deleting the data, taking care of that. So that will be the curative phase. And then going forward, there will be a preventive phase where centralizing the data in one location like a locker, and then encrypting it, hashing it, various technical solutions will be available.
Thank you very much for elaborating, and I think the most important thing which Mr. Sales has told, that the data audit, digital audit is very important, and a police officer, you must aware the people. I think there is a time the police must conduct different type of workshop and awareness program in their respective districts so that people must be aware. I think this is going to be a very important challenge. Otherwise, police alone may not be, because prevention is always better than cure. So now I come to Pawan Sharma Sahab, and he is a very well-known face to our students as well. So this question to him will be more confined towards the student and academia, and every student is worried that what will his future, and he is the mentor for this purpose and globally known face in the entrepreneurship and all. So, sir, I have a question to you. Our students want to become entrepreneur, and they want to venture into data protection sector, which is the emerging sector. So what are your advice that how they should, step by step, how they can venture into this arena, which is a very, very is fascinating and have wide scope?
Thank you, Doctor. And first of all, hearty congratulations for your third qualification, third year, and to also the students. Now, it's a bit tricky question. I always say that we have police officers in India who are powerful, and we have students here who are powerful. They use a lot of power. There's a difference between FUL, fool, and FOOL, fool. So we don't want to be powerful, we need to be powerful. So the difference, if you remember, I mentioned to you, each one of us here uses power. P stands for platform, O stands for anything that's online, W stands for wallet, Bitcoin, you name it. E stands for anything that is embedded car, embedded phones, anything. R stands for anything that is real time. And guess what? We all are hearing one term every day. Literally every day when we get up and hear where India stands on its tariff. And I say if you use power, whether it's the police or it's the students, you need to be tariffed. T stands for transparency, A stands for accountability. R stands for you have to be realistic. I stands for interoperable. F stands for fair. And the other F stands for flexibility. So it's very important. So as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's going to build a system, you have to follow the laws that Ms. Neil just mentioned, which is whether it is GDPR in Europe, DPA in India, whether it is CCPA in the US, and there are many other state and regional and industry-wide things that you have to follow. That is a given. Okay? You also have to follow when you do cross-border transactions of data, when you share data. There are things like standard contractual clauses, or there are binding corporate rules that you have to follow. But fundamentally, I believe to what Dr. Saab mentioned this morning, it's Article 25 of GDPR. If we adhere to that itself, which is legality by design and privacy by legality of law by design and privacy by design, this is very important. What is it? We are hearing these terms more often, but it means when you are defining your services, when you are designing your services, designing your product, you have to ensure that you take into consideration what are the legal repercussions that I may have if I build this product. So it is proactive, it is not after. So it is proactive, it is complete. Right? Likewise, privacy by design. You have to ensure that you are giving 100% privacy right at the beginning when you're building the thing. Similar to what we have, in the earlier days we used to do, design, manufacturing by design, right? Or for design, as we would call it. Classic example, how many of you use Apple? Right? So Apple has inbuilt facial recognition in it. That itself is a classic example of privacy by design. So I would leave this, so I would say, look at this, focus on these two things. This is very important. And two more things that I would leave, the room behind, Dr. Saab, is one is a lot is being talked about AI. You have to ensure that you think of what is AI, what is AI ethics that you are looking at. It's very, very important. And then the other one is how the AI doesn't take over from things. And that is a very simple, it's called AI singularity. So AI singularity and AI ethical or also oversight is called these days. You have to be careful of that. Over to you.
So thank you very much. And I know that this topic is very new to many of us sitting in this hall, and it needs a lot of deliberation. But because of paucity of time, I may not have space to ask the second round of questions. So there are more topics on this subject, and I believe that and to these next 2 days we will be deliberating more. But at the end of this session, I can conclude by saying that police must get up, and I think it is the role of the senior ranks to take this responsibility so that they can guide their downline staff. And this cyber crime and cyber security, they are two sides of the same coin. Until unless we understand how to secure, we cannot really deal cyber crime for the longer term. So prevention is always required, and for that matter, and as a senior officer, I request you that just give at least 10-15 minutes time every day on some, you can say either Grok or your ChatGPT, just to learn what are the nuances of this. And this is the time, that is why our government, Honorable DGP has sent you here, so that you can become a real leader in this field to deal the cyber crime and data security. With this, thank you very much, the honorable panelists, to have deliberated in a very short span. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our panelists for such an engaging and thought-provoking session. We are deeply honored to share the stage with such intellectual minds.
Thank you everyone. Now, I would like to call Dr. S.K. Jain sir to present the memento to all our panelists as a token of appreciation. Thank you everyone.